Accurate and fit-for-purpose pH measurement is dependent on a number of factors, and the quality of the pH buffers or calibrants is one such factor. Up to now, this critical area has received poor attention in the technical and scientific literature. This webinar explains briefly what pH buffers are and their uses. However, calibration of the instrument is not the only function of high-quality pH buffers. Such buffers have a role in quality control, method validation, and instrument qualification. The characteristics of what constitutes a high-quality pH buffer selection is presented, with particular emphasis on the metrological aspects. This includes traceability, stability, accreditation, and certification. This webinar concludes with many practical aspects of pH buffer selection, packaging options, and specifications. Reagecon's pH buffer standards are directly traceable to the IUPAC pH scale by an unbroken chain of traceability. Reagecon achieved this traceability through a series of comparisons, the key reference materials being standard reference materials, SRMs, manufactured by NIST as shown on your screen now. For proof of traceability, all these comparisons must be made in a technically valid manner, and the accuracy of each step must be quantified by calculating the associated uncertainty of measurement. Reagecon's pH buffer standards meet the ISO definition of traceability, that is, the ability to relate measurements back to a stated reference, usually an international standard, through an unbroken chain of comparisons, each having stated uncertainties of measurement. Reagecon's traceability claims are guaranteed by our accredited test methods to ISO IEC 17025. If your pH calibration is made using traceable pH buffers, then you have a direct link to the international pH scale for your measurements. Without this link, you're not entitled to report your measurements in pH units, so the number displayed on your pH meter is just that, a number, and is not a pH value. The common link that is achieved by traceability allows comparability of results regardless of when the measurements were made, where the measurements were made, and what instrumentation was used to make the measurements. Traceable analysis is necessary for consistency and universal acceptance of your pH results, including acceptance by regulatory bodies. Reagecon's pH buffers have been specially formulated to ensure their stability. The packaging bottles that we use have also been selected and tested to provide maximum stability. We have conducted stability trials on both freshly opened and part-full bottles of our pH buffers to validate their shelf life. This demonstrates that Reagecon's pH buffers will stay within their specification limits up to the stated expiry date, regardless of when the bottle was first opened, provided that the pH buffer is stored and used in accordance with good laboratory practice. Most of Reagecon's pH buffers have an expiry date of either 2 years or 3 years from the date of manufacture. Reagecon's pH analysis is accredited to ISO IEC 17025. Reagecon's accreditation to ISO IEC 17025 gives independent proof of a number of key areas that include traceability. By using buffers from a manufacturer that holds ISO IEC 17025 accreditation, you have a guarantee of traceability. Reagecon manufacture the most comprehensive range of pH reagents in the world. These are designed to suit all end-user requirements. These include laboratory-grade buffers, the professional range, which are buffer standards as per NIST DIN, and high-resolution buffers, low ionic strength buffers, and pH buffer capsules. We're delighted to have added several new offerings that include buffers to calibrate antimony electrodes, sterile buffers, and colour-coded pH buffers with a 3 decimal place specification. All are manufactured to exacting specifications with an extended shelf life and cover the pH range of pH 1 to pH 13 inclusive, plus many more non-even integer values. Ultimately, the measurement of pH that is fit for purpose depends on 4 key factors: the instrument, electrode, environment, and the pH buffers. In the literature in general, less attention has been paid to either the correct use, selection, or metrology of the pH buffers. In fact, in some cases, these elements have been taken for granted. It is hoped that the various elements that contribute to the production, use and selection of pH buffers and how pH buffers impact the whole measurement experience has been covered briefly in this webinar. It is hoped, therefore, that by using or being aware of the impacts of these elements on pH buffers will lead to an easier and fit-for-purpose pH measurement experience. More detailed technical information and specific product information can be obtained at www.reagecon.com either through our webshop or through our Knowledge Centre.